Hello, dear students. Today I'm going to talk about the career planning and the development process. So, what do we understand by a career? Very often we talk about job and a career. Very often we say we need to be looking at making a career, with any sort of a area of interest or any sort of a job or a line of job that enables us to prepare a career. Job is temporary, something that we take up. Uh, you know, we want to start with working and then we take up a series of similar kind of jobs. When there is a consistent line of linkage between the jobs, it leads to a career. Let's look at a definition of Herbert Simon. Now, he says a career is an honorable occupation which one normally takes up during his or her youth with the expectation of advancement and pursues it until retirement. So very often we ask people, so what are you doing? So what career would you want to make? So somebody says, I've made a career in banking, or I've made a career in teaching, or I've made a career as a researcher, or I've made a career as a government servant or a public servant, right? So which is nothing but a series of jobs that one takes up in in their course of time, when they are um, working in different organizations, learning and contributing for the organization. So career planning and development becomes very important. So it is not just from an employee's point of view that the employee is interested in developing and building a career, but as an organization or the HR department, which primarily works for the betterment and development of employees, must also think and ensure that there is a certain plan that they have to help and develop the career of an employee. So career planning and development means by which an organization can sustain or increase its employees' productivity. So you're identifying the performance and rewarding the performance, and also identifying potential and competency in them, and preparing them to take up a line of employment or jobs that they could possibly do well in the coming future, and thereby you create opportunities for promotion and advancement. So what is career management? It is a lifelong process of investing resources to accomplish your future career goals. So you invest time, money, energy, education. You put a lot of efforts in trying to accomplish what you want to accomplish. You can upscale yourself. You gain more knowledge. You acquire a certain new skill, right? And you adapt to the environment and gain that experience and exposure. So it is a continuing process that allows you to adapt to the changing demands of a dynamic environment. So the management process embraces various concepts, which is self-awareness, career development planning, and career exploration, lifelong learning, and networking. Self-awareness is where an individual, an employee, has to understand what is his line of interest. You can't take up a job or a career in an area that you're not interested. You've got to find out what's your inner calling. What kind of a job or what kind of a career would you want to take up. So you need to do a little bit of introspection. You need to do your personal SWOT analysis and then find out what your strengths are and where those strengths can be matched with the right opportunities that are emerging in various jobs or in different organizations. And then likewise, you need to plan your career ahead. Where do you want to see yourself 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And then look at what kind of jobs are going to emerge, what kind of knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes are going to be expected. Accordingly, we've got to prepare a plan and see how we can acquire these knowledge and skills in some time. And that's what brings us to lifelong learning. So learning is a continuous process, and development is also a continuous process. So a career is not going to be built overnight. A career is something that you build over a period of time, and then you need to build some very good networks. Networks that will enable you to connect with the right people in the industry, connect with the right uh, uh, you know people who can help you to give those right kind of opportunities, or give you that platform where you can really showcase your knowledge of how you can do your job and your skill, and then be able to move ahead in your career. So what are the objectives of career planning, right? Career planning helps us to identify and make the opportunities very clear beforehand, so we are able to know what opportunities are there and what kind of jobs we can take up. Secondly, it can help reduce employee turnover, because as an organization you are helping the employee know what kind of jobs are available and what they could possibly take up. And then you're creating opportunities for upskilling, reskilling, training and development, and definitely for promotion. So all of this only makes an employee understand that he is valued, and that as an organization you are concerned, deeply concerned about his or her career, and hence employee productivity comes down. Right? When automatically an employee is focused on his career, there's productivity that increases. Right? Career planning can help the employee to understand the various stages of career that he or she is going to be moving into, and then what needs to be done in order to motivate them and make sure that in every phase of their career they're contributing, they're growing, and they're developing. Right? And the last objective is to achieve the organization's goal by providing the employees the paths to reach higher order needs. So when we talk about career development, we're not just looking at not just the employee personal development of an employee, right? As an organization, organizations' needs, expectation, demands also continue to increase year after year. When such a kind of a demand increases, the current set of employees with their current level of knowledge and skills may not be able to contribute and do those jobs well, and hence a career planning stage is required, where an employee is prepared enough to meet the future challenges and expectations that are going to emerge in the organization. So that's when we are preparing future ready employees. We are preparing employees who are good enough to do the jobs in that dynamic environment when we move ahead into the future. Right? When we're talking about career planning and development, it's also very interesting to also bring about and touch upon this topic on psychological contract. The psychological contract is a relationship, a psychological relationship, a perceptual relationship between the organization and the employee, between the employer and the employee. What does the employee think and feel about the employee, and what does the employee think and feel about their employers? So it's the individual's expectations, beliefs, ambitions, and obligations as perceived by the employer and the worker. How does each one of them look into it, right? And if the employer values the employee and does everything for the benefit of the employee psychological contract remains intact, which means the relationship remains intact. Likewise, when an employee has a very favorable or a very positive perception and understanding about the organization, then they have a very positive psychological contract. So as long as both the parties are in a position to maintain this relationship, maintain this uh, contract, and they make efforts to safeguard and nurture this relationship, the psychological contract remains intact. When either one of the parties does something that breaches this particular relationship, that's when a psychological contract gets breached. So a tremendous amount of care has to be taken. It depends on what the employee feels the employer is doing for them, and the employer also must feel vice versa about uh, the employees. So although the notion of psychological contract describes the expectation and assumptions of the employers and their workers, the concept has been mainly studied from the perspective of an employee, which is very often it is how an employee feels about their employer. So it depends on what does the employee feel about the employer in terms of the policies that they have, in terms of remunerations that they receive, in terms of the relationships that they have, in terms of how procedures are followed in the organization. How does the employer or the organization treat the employees, and whether promises that are made by the organization are kept. So all of that goes into it. So it's a collective, it's a holistic understanding and a collective view of what an employee thinks and feels about the organization. So the psychological contract, on the other hand, describes how the parties themselves understand their relationship, and that if the relationship is good, then they continue to be more dedicated, continue to be more committed, continue to be more loyal, and it's a win-win kind of a situation that can come. So what all is included in a psychological contract? A psychological contract may include a sense of job security, career prospects that are provided by the organization to the employee, the training and development efforts that are taken by the organization to train employees, to upskill and reskill them, perceived fairness of pay and benefit, whether there is any sort of discrimination, and then the support of the manager or the supervisor, and employer's contribution in relation to the impact on society and communities is also something that naturally works, which is what sort of a branding and what sort of a perception the organization has in society and in the community also weighs well to be included into the psychological contract. So, what is going to be the role of the employee in career development? Because uh, career development and planning and development and the growth in employee career is something that cannot happen just by the efforts of an employer. So, an employee also has a role to play. So, what is going to be the role? The career planning process means matching the individual strengths and weaknesses with the occupational opportunities. So, the employee has to find out when he or she is planning for his or her career to do a SWOT analysis to understand what are their strengths and weaknesses, what is that they can do, and what sort of jobs and prospects are possible for them to take up within the organization. And then the employee must pursue occupations, jobs, and a career that capitalize on his interests, aptitude, values, and skills. So you need to look for those kind of opportunities where your interests match. Right. Thirdly, an employee must choose occupations, jobs, and a career that makes sense in terms of projected future demand. To be able to make choices in terms of jobs, in terms of careers, in terms of every decision that you're going to make should be beneficial for you and for the organization in the future. An employee must know what he is looking for in a job and what to what extent the current job is fulfilling, and if he feels that the employee has is going to have a better future in the coming years if he upskills and moves ahead in career and makes those necessary efforts to scale up in career, then obviously that aspect also is to be taken into consideration, and that the employee has to prioritize those as areas that he definitely would want to work on. Get rid of energy draining, low impact responsibilities. And if an employee is satisfied with his occupation where he works, but doesn't is not with a job, the employee must see how he can prepare himself or train himself into identifying a job that really makes the suit. So there is a mismatch in terms of job, what you wanted to do and what you're doing right now, then you must be able to prepare yourself and look for a job within the same organization where you can contribute in a much more meaningful manner. Now, the last part, we're coming to the role of employers in career development. So, the manager should be a mentor. Now, career planning and development sometimes cannot happen uh, by the employee alone. The employee may not be so self aware or may not be able to understand the opportunities that are going to come in the future. This is where the leaders and the managers of the organization step in, right? So the leader or the manager who becomes your mentor must be able to talk to the employees, must be able to help them understand where they are right now and what kind of opportunities are available for them and where they can match their capabilities in the future. Secondly, effective managers must incorporate coaching skills in their management, where you are on an everyday basis doing the on the job coaching, helping them hone those skills or helping the employees to understand those gaps and where exactly they could contribute and where exactly they could do the right thing. The manager must help the employee understand the shifting demand for their skills and ensure appropriate training to identify those areas where they can get outdated in their jobs and how they could possibly move into the future, and how we can identify those sort of skills. And employers must provide regular feedback and guidance to subordinates, and then employers must provide a career map to tell the employee what are the future prospects that they have and where they could possibly grow. So the mentor or the leader of the organization can make a huge difference. So this is where providing them regular feedback, giving them a lot of guidance, helping them know the weaknesses or areas where they need to improve, and then also identifying those areas where they could look for honing their skills, improving their skills, honing their skills, and also acquiring and learning new skills. Now, all of that can definitely help an employee to prepare himself well, not just for the job that he's doing, but also to prepare for the career that is going to come ahead for them. And that's precisely what an employee can do. What an employer can help an employee achieve in their career growth, and what an employee also has to do from his or her end to be able to be that very productive, to be that very demanded, most demanded employee by the organization. I thank you. I hope this particular video has helped you to understand the nuances of employee career planning and development, and then the kind of objectives that go into the planning and development process, and then finally the role of the employer and employee. Thank you.